My husband mocked my job, but a $100,000 offer made me walk away smiling. He told me my passion was a dirty little hobby. He never realized the most valuable thing in our house wasn't his sports car or his designer watch, it was the junk in my office. And when the truth came out, that hobby bought my freedom. My name is Clara Hayes. I am in my late 30s, and I am a conservator of rare books and manuscripts. My hands, often stained with walnut ink or the faint, sweet smell of archival paste, understand a history my husband never will. I work part-time at the Westwood Athenaeum, a quiet, non-profit sanctuary of vellum and parchment, a place where the past is patiently mended. My world smells of aging paper, leather dressing, and the subtle dust of centuries. My husband, Liam, lives in a different world entirely. His is polished glass, sterile chrome, and the sharp, metallic scent of new money. He is a supremely successful private equity manager, a man whose entire vocabulary seems built around leverage, ROI, and market value. He moves through our immaculate minimalist house with the breezy confidence of a man who believes he has bought and paid for every shadow. Tonight was a prime example. We were hosting one of his essential dinner parties. The air was thick with the expensive scent of roast lamb and Liam's self-congratulation. He held his wine glass like a trophy, regaling his associates with the details of his latest multi-million-dollar acquisition. It was a hostile takeover, pure and simple, he boasted, his voice cutting cleanly through the polite clinking of silver. We gutted their inefficiencies and optimized the assets, a clean 50% return in just 6 months. His audience, other men in sharp suits and their silent wives, nodded in appreciation. A woman to my right, the wife of a new partner, turned to me. Her smile was polite, perhaps genuinely curious. "And what about you? Clara Liam mentioned you work at the Athenaeum." Before I could even form a response about the intricacies of 15th century binding techniques, Liam laughed. It was a sharp, dismissive sound that immediately captured the table's attention, freezing my words in my throat. "Oh, Clara plays with old paper," he said, waving his hand as if brushing away a fly. "It's cute. It's her little charity case to pass the time. Keeps her busy. Right, honey." The table offered a few strained, sycophantic chuckles. I felt the familiar heat rise in my neck, the tightening in my chest that felt like old leather shrinking. I smiled, a fixed, brittle thing I had perfected over the years. "Something like that," I murmured, focusing on the deep red wine swirling in my glass. As soon as the last guest departed, the sound of their Uber fading down the long drive, I excused myself. I left Liam basking in the glow of his success, already on the phone planning his next conquest. I retreated to the only room in the house that truly felt like mine, my small home office, tucked away behind the kitchen, originally designated as a pantry. It was cramped, cluttered, and smelled wonderfully of history. Shelves overflowed with the collection I inherited from my mentor, Professor Alistair Finch, books in various states of disrepair, boxes of loose manuscripts, jars of pigments, specialized tools, and presses. This was my sanctuary, my real work. Liam hated this room. He only ever referred to its contents as Alistair's dusty inheritance. He saw it as a fire hazard, a waste of valuable square footage in his perfectly curated, sterile home. He didn't see the history, he only saw the clutter, the lack of monetary shine. Liam controlled everything else, especially the finances. My modest paycheck from the Athenaeum, a job I held for the access it gave me to the labs and the academic community, went directly into a joint account that I rarely saw. He managed all the investments, paid all the bills, and transferred what he called an allowance into my personal account every month. The word itself felt infantilizing, a calculated, steady reminder of my dependency. "Honey, my job pays for this lifestyle," he'd say often, gesturing vaguely at the Italian marble countertops or the new Tesla in the garage. "Your little hobby, Well, it's good you have it. It's charming. He defined our lives by what his real job provided, and my contribution was rendered invisible. A few weeks ago, his best friend and occasional business partner, Julian, had stopped by. Julian was a high-end antiques dealer, a man so slick he seemed perpetually polished. He had an eye for things he could flip for a massive profit and a predator's disdain for anything else. Liam had, for some reason, insisted Julian see my office. Julian leaned against the doorframe, his expensive suit looking comically out of place among the stacks of paper. He didn't touch anything. He just scanned the shelves with a practiced, bored gaze. "Charming, Clara, truly," he said, his voice smooth as polished wood. "A lovely little academic collection, lots of sentiment, but no real commercial value. I'm afraid it's all just paper." Liam had nodded, validated. "See, just what I told you. Dusty." As Julian spoke, I felt a prickle of unease. I remembered one of the last things Alistair ever said to me, his voice thin but his eyes sharp in the hospital bed. "Don't let the vultures see the value, Clara. They only understand the price." I had dismissed it at the time as the slightly paranoid rambling of a dying, eccentric academic. Now, watching Julian's empty eyes slide over my shelves, I wasn't so sure. After they left, I returned to my work, my focus sharpening. I wasn't just playing with paper. I was deep in a private project, a restoration that consumed my evenings and weekends. It was a modest-looking, unassuming text from the 17th century, bound in plain, worn calfskin, part of Alistair's collection. It was damaged. The spine was frail, and the pages were heavily foxed. To Liam, it was just another piece of trash. To Julian, it was commercially worthless. But Alistair had tagged this one with a simple, handwritten note, "Look closer." And so I was. Under the specialized glow of my ultraviolet lamp, hidden beneath the grime of centuries, I was beginning to see something they couldn't, something they would never understand. I was stabilizing the pages, carefully mending the microscopic tears, a quiet, meticulous process that felt infinitely more real to me than any multi-million-dollar deal Liam could ever close. The first crack in the facade appeared on a Tuesday morning. I was at the Athenaeum, cataloging a new acquisition, when my phone buzzed with an email notification from our bank. It was an automated alert a withdrawal of $50,000 had been processed from our joint savings account. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. $50,000. It was an enormous sum, and it was from the account we rarely ever touched, the one I mentally earmarked as our emergency fund, built mostly from a small inheritance I'd received years ago. That evening, I waited until Liam had finished his nightly ritual, a glass of expensive scotch, a quick scan of the financial markets on his tablet. He seemed relaxed, pleased with himself. "Liam," I began, trying to keep my voice casual, "I got a bank alert today, a $50,000 withdrawal from the savings account." He didn't even look up from his tablet. "Cash flow, honey, just moving assets around for a new investment. It's already working for us." $50,000, without talking to me first. "Liam, that's our emergency fund." He finally lowered the tablet, his expression shifting from relaxed to annoyed, the look he always gave me when I questioned his domain. "Clara, please. It's complex. Derivatives, leveraging. It's not your world. The money is fine. It's just in a different vehicle. Don't worry your pretty little head about the numbers. That's what I'm here for, isn't it?" He smiled, a tight, patronizing gesture meant to end the conversation. And it did. I knew pushing further would only lead to a fight where I would be labeled as ungrateful or stupid. But a few days later, the second crack appeared. Liam, who usually ignored my office, suddenly developed a keen interest in it. He leaned against the doorframe while I was working, the same pose Julian had struck. "You know, honey, I was thinking," he said, his voice laced with an unfamiliar, forced casualness. "This collection, It's really taking up a lot of space. We could put a nice Peloton in here, maybe a sauna. I stopped my work, looking up at him. A sauna in a pantry. I'm serious. Why don't you just sell it all? Get rid of Alistair's junk. Even if you just got a few $1,000s for it, that's better than nothing. Right? We could use the cash. My stomach tightened. Use the cash. You just moved $50,000. You're the one who told me your last deal was worth millions. His face darkened for a split second before the mask snapped back into place. It's about liquidity. Clara, smart people keep their assets fluid. Just think about it. It's just sitting here collecting dust. It's useless. His insistence was jarring. He had moved past mockery into active, urgent pressure. And then the phone calls started. His home office, which was always open, was now always locked. I'd walk by and hear his voice, hushed and angry. That's not what we agreed. I heard him hiss one afternoon. Just get it done. I don't care about the risk, just the result. When he emerged, his face would be flushed, and he'd brush past me as if I weren't there. The unease settled deep in my bones. It felt like the house itself was holding its breath. The next week, at the Athenaeum, my boss, Dr. Eris, called me into his office. He was a kind, elderly man who shared Alistair's pure academic passion. Clara, a strange thing, he said, peering at me over his spectacles. You're our 17th century specialist. Have you heard these rumors? What rumors? Dr. Eris. A mystery collector. Someone with incredibly deep pockets. They're aggressively acquiring 17th century texts, specifically philosophical and scientific manuscripts. But they're doing it quietly, through shell companies, paying prices that are, well, they're frankly insane. 10, 20 times the auction estimates. It's driving the market haywire. Everyone is scrambling to see what they have. A cold premonition slid down my spine. A mystery collector. For 17th century texts, precisely. It makes one wonder if they're trying to reassemble a lost collection, or perhaps they know something the rest of us don't. I went home that night, the hum of Dr. Eris's words vibrating in my head. Liam was out, a last-minute client dinner. I went straight to my office, the locked door of his study across the hall feeling like a silent accusation. I pulled out the unassuming calfskin-bound book, the one Alistair had tagged. I ran my fingers over the worn cover. I had been so focused on mending the paper, I hadn't looked closely enough at the paper itself. I held one of the pages up to my candling lamp, and there, in the top left corner, I saw it. A watermark. It wasn't just a standard paper mill mark, it was more intricate. A small, subtle crest, a phoenix rising. I'd missed it. It was so faint, so perfectly integrated into the paper's grain. My heart was pounding now. I remembered a specific lesson from Alistair, a technique he'd developed himself using polarized light and UV filters to detect iron gall inks that had faded to invisibility. The past never really disappears. Clara, he'd said. It just waits to be read in the right light. I shut off the overhead lights, plunging the room into near darkness. I set up the specialized lamp, angling the beam at a precise, glancing 30-degree angle. I put on the filtered glasses. At first, there was nothing, just the age-spotted paper, the printed Latin text. And then, as I slowly adjusted the wavelength, words began to bloom in the margins. They were faint, like ghosts, a delicate, sharp, and incredibly precise handwriting. It wasn't just notes. It was a commentary, a fiery, passionate, and brilliant argument with the printed text. My breath caught in my throat. I scrambled to a flat file Alistair had left me, one labeled Exemplars. I pulled out a folder. Inside was a photostat copy of a letter he had used for teaching, a sample he'd treasured. I placed it under the lamp next to the book. The handwriting was identical. The precise loop of the G, the sharp, decisive cross of the T. I knew that hand. Every academic in my field knew that hand. It belonged to one of the most important, controversial, and foundational figures of the entire period. The text in my hands wasn't just a book from the 17th century, it was his personal copy, and the scribbles in the margins were part of his long-lost correspondence, a running philosophical debate with the author, a series of letters thought to be destroyed in a fire centuries ago. I sat back, the air knocked out of me. The book wasn't just valuable, it was priceless, and suddenly, everything clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Julian, the expert, dismissing my collection. Liam, desperate for a few $1,000s. The $50,000 withdrawal? The locked office. The mystery buyer paying insane prices for 17th century texts. Alistair's voice echoed in my head. Don't let the vultures see the value, Clara. They only understand the price. They weren't just vultures. One of them was my husband. I was still in the dark, my breath unsteady, the phantom glow of the hidden annotations seeming to hang in the air. The book lay open on my workbench, a quiet testament to a history that Liam and Julian saw only as a commodity. The weight of the discovery and the sickening implication of my husband's recent behavior pressed down on me. I felt trapped between two betrayals, one historical, of a brilliant mind's lost words, and one agonizingly personal. My laptop, sitting open on the corner of my desk, chimed. It was a new email, not to my personal address, but to the generic inquiry account I'd set up years ago for a moribund website, a placeholder for a freelance restoration business I'd never had the confidence to launch. The sender was Acquisitions LLC. The subject line was chillingly simple, offer for the Alistair Finch collection. My hand trembled as I clicked it open. The message was not from an academic or a fellow conservator. It was blunt, corporate, and devoid of courtesy. Dear Ms. Hayes, we have been made aware of your ownership of the Alistair R. Finch collection. Our firm, Acquisitions LLC, is prepared to make a formal offer. We will purchase the entire collection, as is and sight unseen, for the sum of $100,000. We will handle all logistics, packing, and transportation. This is a limited-time offer, valid for 48 hours. We await your prompt reply. I read the words again, and again. $100,000. The room, which had just felt claustrophobic, suddenly seemed to tilt. $100,000. To me, a woman who subsisted on a carefully managed allowance, who saved for months to buy specialized conservation tools, who had to justify every expenditure to her husband, that number was astronomical. It was not just money. It was escape velocity. It was a new studio, a new life, a future where I wasn't defined by Liam's ledger. For one wild, dangerous second, I let myself believe it. Maybe the whole collection was valuable. Maybe Julian had been wrong, and this was a legitimate, if eccentric, buyer who knew something I didn't. But the phrase sight unseen snagged in my mind. No serious collector, no reputable institution would ever make such an offer. It was reckless. It was the act of someone who didn't care about the 99% of the collection. They were hunting for the 1%. They were hunting for the book right in front of me. I needed to see Liam's face. The suspicion in my gut was heavy and cold, and I needed to confirm it. I left my office, my legs feeling strangely light, and found him in the living room, scrolling through market reports on his phone, the blue light casting sharp shadows on his face. Liam, I said. My voice was steady, clearer than I expected. He didn't look up. I just got an email about Alistair's collection. That made him look up. His eyes, usually assessing and quick, narrowed. What about it? Did someone finally offer you $50 for the lot? They offered $100,000. I watched him. I was prepared for anything laughter, disbelief, an accusation that it was a scam. I expected him to say, $100,000 for that trash, that's impossible. He did none of those things. His face didn't register shock. It registered relief. A slow, triumphant smile spread across his lips, the smile of a man who had been waiting for a difficult negotiation to finally close. He stood up, tossing his phone onto the sofa. $100,000. He exclaimed, his voice booming in the quiet room. He actually clapped his hands together. See, I told you that junk had to be worth something. I knew it. That's fantastic. Clara. He crossed the room and grabbed my shoulders, his grip tight, his eyes shining with an alarming brightness. You're taking it. Right now. Email them back and take it before they change their minds. You don't think it's strange? I asked, keeping my voice small, hesitant. $100,000 for a collection they've never even appraised. Who cares? He laughed, turning away from me to walk toward the bar. He was already reaching for the expensive scotch. They're probably some idiot tech founders with more money than sense. It's their mistake, honey, our gain. We'll take the money, and you can finally clear out that mess in the pantry. His performance was too fast, too practiced. He wasn't surprised by the money. He was pleased with the number. He was a man who had just seen his plan come to fruition. A pit opened in my stomach. The $50,000 he'd moved. His sudden, intense pressure for me to sell. The mystery buyer Dr. Eris had mentioned. It all coalesced into one hideous, undeniable truth. I don't know, I said, letting a quiver enter my voice. It feels fast. It's Alistair's legacy. I think I need time to think about it. I should at least find out who Acquisitions LLC is. Liam froze, the glass halfway to his lips. The bonhomie, the manufactured celebration, vanished. His face, which moments before had been jubilant, instantly hardened into a mask of cold fury. Think about it, he repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. He set the glass down with a sharp clack. What is there to think about? Clara. I need a day, I stammered, backing away toward my office. I'll just email them and say I need time to consider. Are you stupid? He hissed, stalking toward me. The suddenness of his rage made me flinch. Are you actually profoundly stupid? This isn't some academic debate. This is $100,000. This is the most money your pathetic little hobby will ever make in your entire life. It's more than you make in 3 years at that sad little institute. Liam, you said we were fine, I whispered, the wall pressing against my back. You said your deal was worth millions. It's complicated, he snapped, his face inches from mine. It's about liquidity cash flow, things you don't understand. We need that money. You will not screw this up for me. Clara, you will not. His desperation was a stench in the air. It was raw, ugly, and absolute. He wasn't excited about a windfall. He was terrified of a deal falling through. He and Julian hadn't just seen the collection. They knew. They knew what was in it, and they had set this entire thing up to steal it from me. This $100,000 wasn't an offer. It was a calculated, insulting lowball, a trap designed to look like salvation. And in that moment, looking into the eyes of the man I had married, I understood. The fear I had lived with for years, the fear of not being smart enough, not rich enough, not enough it crystallized, and then it turned into something else, something cold, hard, and sharp. I made myself look small. I nodded, as if cowed by his anger. You're right, I whispered. I'm sorry. I'm just overwhelmed. Of course, I'll email them back. The tension left his shoulders. He grunted, satisfied. Good. Don't be an idiot. Just take the money. He turned his back on me and went back to his drink. The victor. I slipped into my office, closed the door, and turned the lock, the click sounding unnaturally loud in the silence. My heart was hammering, not with fear, but with a terrible, clarifying rage. He had made his move. Now, it was my turn. I sat in the silence of my office, the locked door a flimsy barrier against the man in the next room. My rage was so cold it felt like a physical weight in my chest. He had known. He had been waiting for that email. But how my freelance account was obscure, forwarded to my primary email. But I never used it. He wasn't just manipulative. He was actively watching me. My eyes fell on my desktop computer, the one Liam had generously upgraded for me last Christmas, insisting I needed something faster for my hobby. I traced the tangle of wires behind the CPU, and I saw it. It was tiny, black, and plugged in between the keyboard's USB cable and the port, a keylogger, a physical hardware keylogger. Every email I'd written, every website I'd visited, every password I'd typed. He had seen it all. The realization was sickening. It wasn't just deceit. It was total surveillance. My breath hitched, but I forced myself to be calm. Think like Alistair. My mentor had been meticulous, bordering on paranoid, about security. The digital world is just like paper. Clara, he'd lectured me. Fragile, easily altered, and full of forgeries. Never trust a network you don't control. He had given me something years ago, a heavy, outdated laptop. It's clean, he'd said. I wiped it, installed a secure OS, and disconnected the Wi-Fi card. It's an air-gapped machine. For your most important research, never connect it to the internet. I dug it out of the back of my closet, hidden under a box of archival linen. It booted up slowly, the fan whirring like a tiny asthmatic engine. It was safe. It was untouched by Liam. I couldn't work from the house. The network was his. I grabbed the laptop, a portable USB drive, and my purse. I walked out of my office, forcing my face into a mask of placid obedience. Liam was on the sofa, nursing his scotch, scrolling through his phone. I'm just going to the library, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I need to use their scanner for the paperwork. He grunted, not looking up. Whatever, just get it done. Clara, $100,000. Don't be stupid. I won't, I said. The public library felt like a sanctuary. The Wi-Fi was open, anonymous, one of 100 users browsing job sites and social media. I sat in a secluded carrel, the old laptop's screen a dim, comforting gray. I tethered my phone, using a public VPN I'd installed ages ago on Alistair's advice, and began to work. My hands, usually steady when handling brittle, 400-year-old paper, were shaking. I wasn't a hacker. I was a conservator, but I was also a researcher. And I knew how to dig. I started with Acquisitions LLC. The name was laughably generic. The Public Business Registry database told the first story. The company had been incorporated exactly 3 weeks ago. Its listed address was a post office box in Delaware. It was a shell, created for a single purpose: the email. I had forwarded the original from my home computer to a new, secure email address I'd just created. I opened it and looked deeper than the message. I examined the email header, the digital postage stamps that track a message's origin. It was masked, routed through several servers, but the originating IP block wasn't random. It belonged to a large, corporate hosting service. I cross-referenced the hosting service with other known entities: a parent company, a holding group, and then I found the connection. The holding group's name, buried deep in a state filing, was listed as the primary financial partner for another, more public entity, Julian Enterprises. Julian. Liam's friend. The expert who had dismissed my collection as charming and commercially worthless. The air left my lungs. The trap was sprung, and I could see the steel jaws. I needed the rest. I needed the why. I went back home. Liam's car was gone. He was likely out celebrating the deal he thought he'd just closed. I sat down at my compromised computer, the keylogger blinking faintly behind the tower. He was watching. I had to give him a show. I opened my web browser. My fingers, steady now, typed How to accept a wire transfer for $100,000. I clicked on a few links from major banks. I searched tax implications for selling a private collection. I spent 10 minutes performing the role of the naive, slightly greedy wife, just as he expected me to be. But while my browser was open, my fingers had also, very quietly, inserted the USB drive. I wasn't searching the web. I was running a portable data recovery program aimed not at my hard drive, but at the shared network drive where Liam often stored files, assuming I never looked. I was scanning for deleted files. My heart hammered against my ribs. I kept browsing, clicking, and reading, playing my part. And then, on the recovery program's screen, a folder appeared. It was a cached directory, deleted just last night. The name of the folder was simple: Finch. I restored it. It contained a half-dozen emails and a single spreadsheet. They weren't from Liam's account. They were from a private, encrypted email service. They were between him and Julian. I read the first one, dated 3 months ago, 2 weeks before Julian's visit. It was from Julian. Liam, I've reviewed the preliminary inventory list of the Finch collection you sent. 99% of it is exactly what I said. Academic junk. But that one item you flagged, unidentified 17th C, philosophical text, if that is what I think it is, it could be the Lost M correspondence. I need to see it. The next email, from Liam. How much if it is? Julian's reply, at a private auction, to the right buyer, 8 million, maybe 10. But we have a massive problem. She owns it, and from what you've said, she won't sell. And worse, you don't know which book it is, and we can't let her know we're looking. If she gets it appraised, we're finished. The plan was laid out in the subsequent messages. Julian's visit was a calculated performance to devalue the collection in my eyes. Liam's job was to apply psychological pressure to make me see the collection as a mess, as junk. But I hadn't buckled, so they escalated. The $50,000 withdrawal from our savings. It was all there. A wire transfer receipt from Liam to Julian. The memo line, ALLC Setup and Consulting. Liam had paid Julian with my own money to set up the shell company that would defraud me. And the $100,000 offer. It was their panic move. A number just big enough to make me jump, to make me grateful, to secure the entire collection so they could sift through it, find the one priceless manuscript, and sell it for 100 times the price. They weren't just trying to cheat me. They were trying to buy my inheritance using my own savings. I closed the files. I securely wiped the USB drive. I sat back, the image of Liam's triumphant, relieved face burning in my mind. He hadn't just underestimated my collection. He had underestimated me. He saw me as a hobbyist. He was about to learn what a professional researcher could do. I spent 2 hours in my locked office, not researching, but planning. I was no longer a wife. I was a strategist in a hostile territory. I had moved the priceless 17th century manuscript from my workbench. I wrapped it in acid-free archival tissue and slid it into my climate-controlled portfolio case, which I then tucked into my Athenaeum tote bag, hidden beneath my gym clothes. I left the other books on the shelf, the dusty inheritance he and Julian saw. When I heard Liam's car pull into the garage, my heart didn't leap with fear. It settled into a cold, heavy rhythm. The performance was about to begin. He didn't just walk in. He burst through the front door with a force that rattled the glass in the entryway. His keys didn't hit the silver bowl on the console. They hit the wall and clattered to the floor. "Clara!" he yelled, his voice strained. I came out of the kitchen, wiping my hands on a dish towel, playing the part of the concerned wife. "Liam, what's wrong? You're home early." He looked like a man I had never seen before. His tie was wrenched loose, his top button undone. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, as if he'd been dragging his hands through it. His face was pale, slick with a sheen of sweat. It was a masterful performance. "It's over," he whispered, stalking past me into the living room. "It's all over." "What's over, Liam? You're scaring me." "The fund, the clients, everything. I'm ruined, Clara. We're ruined. He didn't sit. He began to pace, rubbing the back of his neck, a perfect portrait of a man on the verge of collapse. I made a bad call, a terrible call. A leveraged position on a commodities trade. I was so sure, but the market turned. It turned in an hour. It wiped us out. He spun to face me, his eyes wide and panicked. I've lost everything. I've lost a catastrophic amount of our clients' money. We're going to lose the house. Clara, they're going to take everything. This was his move. This was the final, desperate push. I widened my eyes, letting my hand creep up to my mouth. Lose the house. No, Liam, no. You always fix it. You can fix this. Not this time, he roared, and I genuinely flinched, which I was sure he appreciated. This isn't a spreadsheet error. This is ruin. He collapsed onto the sofa, not in his usual confident lounge, but hunched over, his head in his hands. He was breathing hard. They're going to find out. The partners. The SEC. My God. He looked up at me, his face a mask of pleading desperation. I need to show you, so you understand. He grabbed his laptop from his briefcase and flipped it open on the coffee table. He pulled me down to sit beside him. On the screen was a dizzying array of charts. They were complex, multi-layered, and covered in devastating red arrows pointing down. Numbers that meant nothing to me were highlighted in red, all preceded by a minus sign. It looked terrifying. It looked, to an outsider, like absolute financial Armageddon. But I knew from the recovered emails that his fund was having a record year. I knew this was a lie. These charts were a digital fabrication, created for an audience of one, created for me. This, he said, his finger jabbing at a deep, red trough, is where it happened. The entire Asia-Pacific investment. Gone. And this, he pointed to another, is the margin call. We have to cover these losses. Clara, we have to cover them now. Like, in the next 48 hours, or they'll freeze our assets. All of them, including the house. He snapped the laptop shut, the sound like a gunshot in the quiet room. He stood up and resumed his frantic pacing. I have nothing, he said, his voice cracking. Everything is tied up. I can't liquidate. Not in time. It's all gone. Then he stopped. He stood in the middle of the room, his back to me. He let the silence stretch, thick with his manufactured despair. Liam, I whispered, playing my part. What is it? There has to be something. He turned slowly. He looked at me as if he was in physical pain, as if what he was about to say was costing him everything. There is one thing, he said, his voice hoarse. It's God, Clara. I can't even believe I'm thinking it. What? Tell me anything. He walked over to me, kneeling on the floor in front of me, taking my hands in his. His palms were cold and clammy. That offer, he whispered, as if the words were shameful. The one for your books. The $100,000. I recoiled, just slightly, as he knew I would. The collection, Liam, that's Alistair's. I know, he said, cutting me off, his voice pleading. I know, Clara. I know I was a monster about it. I know I mocked your work. I was an arrogant idiot. I saw it as junk because I was too stupid, too obsessed with my own world, to see what it meant to you. He was good. He was very, very good. He was hitting every note, the apology, the self-flagellation, the redemption. But Clara, honey, look at me. That $100,000. It's not just money. It's cash. It's liquid. It's the only liquid asset we can access right now. It's not enough to fix everything, but it's enough to cover the initial margin call. It's enough to buy me time. It's the only thing that can stop them from taking our home. He squeezed my hands, his eyes, so full of fake panic, searching mine. He was turning me into his savior. He was making the theft of my inheritance an act of my own desperate love. Please, he begged, the word breaking. I know I don't deserve it, but please, Clara, I need you. I need you to sell it. It's the only way we get through this. Together. The silence in the room was absolute. I looked at his desperate, pleading face. I saw the actor. I saw the con man. I saw the man who had paid Julian $50,000 of my own money to construct this very moment. I let a single perfect tear roll down my cheek. I let my breath hitch in a sob. Oh, Liam, I whispered. Oh my God, the house, everything. Of course. I leaned forward, clasping his hands. Yes, if it saves us, if it saves you, I'll sell it. Of course I'll sell it. I'll email them right now. I'll tell them yes. I watched his face. I watched it closely. The transformation was immediate, and it was horrifying. The desperation, the panic, the fear, it didn't just fade. It evaporated. The tension in his shoulders, which had been coiled tight, simply dropped. The panicked crease between his brows smoothed. A new light came into his eyes, but it wasn't the light of a man who had just been saved from ruin. It wasn't gratitude. It wasn't the weary, tearful relief of a husband whose wife had just rescued him. It was the cold, bright, unmistakable glint of a predator. It was the quiet, satisfied exhale of a con man who had just closed the most important deal of his life. He pulled me into a hug, burying his face in my shoulder. Thank you, he mumbled, his voice thick. Thank you, Clara. You saved us. You saved me. I patted his back, my hand steady, my face cold and unseen. Of course, I whispered. Of course I did. He thought I was the lamb walking into his trap. He had no idea he had just walked into mine. I let Liam bask in his victory for the rest of the evening. I went to my office, my hands steady, and sat at the compromised computer. He was probably monitoring the keylogger in real time. I typed out a draft email to Acquisitions LLC, to whom it may concern. I am prepared to accept your generous offer of $100,000 for the Alistair Finch collection. I paused, then deleted the line. I had to create a delay, a plausible, professional delay. He knew I was an academic. I had to act like one. My fingers flew across the keyboard, the click-clack of the keys the only sound. To Acquisitions LLC, thank you for your offer. I am prepared to move forward. As this is a significant private collection, and for the security of both parties, I must insist on 2 conditions before I can accept the wire transfer. First, I require a signed purchase agreement. Second, the buyers must provide a certified inventory list for my signature upon pickup, which I will need to prepare. This is non-negotiable for an estate of this nature. I will begin cataloging immediately. Please send over the purchase agreement for my legal review. It was perfect. It was professional. It was bureaucratic. It would infuriate him, but he couldn't argue with it. It sounded exactly like what a cautious, meticulous hobbyist would do. I walked out. I sent the email, I said. Liam looked up from his phone, his relief still visible. Good. Good girl. When does the money come? Not yet. I told them I need to prepare a certified inventory and that I need a purchase agreement. It's standard. Liam, for a collection this size, I can't just hand it over. It's Alistair's legacy. I have to do it right. His jaw tightened. I could see the flash of rage, the desire to scream at me for slowing down the deal. But he couldn't. He was playing the part of the desperate, ruined husband, and I was playing the part of the helpful, if naive, wife. An inventory, he stammered. Clara, does that take long, I told you? Time is... It will take as long as it takes to do it properly, I said, with a quiet firmness he'd never heard from me. I'll go to the Athenaeum tomorrow. I'll need to use their labs to document everything correctly. They can't claim I sold them something I didn't. He had to nod. He was trapped in his own lie. Right. Yes, of course. Just Be fast. Clara, please, be fast. The next morning, I walked into the Westwood Athenaeum carrying my tote bag. The manuscript was safe inside, pressed against my side. The moment the heavy oak doors shut behind me, the air changed. The scent of old paper and beeswax, the profound, heavy silence of the reading room. This was my armor. I was no longer Liam's wife. I was Dr. Hayes, the conservator. I went straight to the sub-basement conservation lab, a room Liam had never seen. It was my true home. I bypassed my normal workbench and went to the imaging studio. This was where we documented our most priceless acquisitions. For the next 4 hours, I was not a woman betrayed. I was a scientist. I placed the manuscript under the multispectral imaging system. I photographed every page, using different light frequencies to capture the faded iron gall ink of the annotations. The hidden words bloomed on the monitor, sharp and clear as the day they were written. I documented the watermark, the tiny phoenix rising, capturing it in high-resolution detail. I photographed the binding, the stitching in the spine, the specific tooling on the worn calfskin. I recorded the precise measurements, the weight, the paper's fiber analysis. I was not just preserving its history. I was creating an ironclad, undeniable legal case. I was building a file of proof that would destroy Julian's reputation and Liam's life. When I was finished, I had a digital file containing gigabytes of data, the manuscript's soul, digitized and duplicated. I did not use the Athenaeum's network. I went to the public library, to the same anonymous Carol, and used the air-gapped laptop and the burner phone I had bought with cash 2 days prior. I didn't call the main number for Christie's. Alistair had known everyone. He had despised Julian, but he had respected a woman named Eleanor Vance, the head of manuscripts at Christie's New York, a direct and fierce competitor of Julian's. I found her direct, secure email address through an academic portal. My message was brief, professional, and encrypted. Dear Dr. Vance, my name is Dr. Clara Hayes. I am the executor of the Alistair Finch collection. I am writing to you today because I have in my possession a manuscript I believe you will find of immediate and profound interest. I have attached a small, encrypted sample of my findings, including multispectral images of hidden annotations in a hand I have positively identified. I believe this to be the Lost M correspondence. I am currently being pressured to sell the entire collection for a fraction of its value to a shell corporation. I require immediate and discreet consultation. Dr. Hayes. I attached 3 of my most compelling images and hit send. The wait was agonizing. 1 hour. 2. My phone buzzed in my hand, the vibration sharp against my palm. A reply from an encrypted, secure server. Dr. Hayes, call this number. Now. EV. My next stop was a bank, downtown, one Liam did not use. I walked into the vault, the air cold and still. I rented a climate-controlled safety deposit box. I took the real manuscript, the priceless book that held my entire future, from my tote bag. I ran my fingers over the cover one last time, a silent promise to Alistair. Then I placed it inside the metal box, closed the lid, and turned the key. It was safe. Safe from Liam, safe from Julian, safe from everyone. I returned home that evening. Liam was pacing, anxious, a man waiting for his payday. "Is it done?" he asked, his voice sharp. "Did you finish the inventory?" "It's done," I said, my voice flat. "They can pick it up tomorrow." I went to my office, and now I set the trap. I looked at the shelves, at Alistair's real legacy, the books he had loved, the ones that were merely companions to the Great One. My hands moved with deliberate care. I sorted through them, my heart aching a little. This was the part I hated. I was sacrificing the rest of the collection. Then I found it, a dull, brown, 17th century theological treatise. It was the same size as the manuscript. The binding was similar. It was appropriately foxed, appropriately aged. It was, to an uneducated eye, or even to a hurried, greedy eye, a perfect match. It was utterly, completely, and academically worthless. I placed the decoy on my workbench, in the exact spot the real manuscript had been. I left my magnifying lamp beside it, as if I had just finished examining it. Then I began to pack. I brought in cardboard boxes from the garage. I carefully, methodically, began to fill them with the rest of Alistair's life. Book by book, manuscript by manuscript, I sealed them away. It felt like a funeral. I was packing up my old life, my old self. Each piece of tape was a final sealing word. When I was done, my office was almost empty. 6 brown boxes were stacked neatly by the door, and on the workbench, alone under the lamplight, sat the decoy, waiting for the vultures. The burner phone vibrated on my nightstand at exactly 7 a.m. I snatched it before the sound could wake Liam. I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and turned on the shower to mask my voice. "This is Dr. Hayes. Dr. Hayes, Eleanor Vance." Her voice was pure electricity, no pleasantries. "We've had our entire antiquities team analyzing your digital files overnight. The consensus is extreme interest. We need to see the asset. Can you be in New York today?" It wasn't a question. It was a summons. "Yes," I said. "I can be there." "Good. My office will have a car waiting for you at LaGuardia. And Clara, do not, under any circumstances, let that book out of your sight. You carry it on. You do not check it. You do not put it in an overhead bin. It does not leave your lap. Do you understand?" "I understand perfectly." I hung up and stepped out of the bathroom. Liam was stirring, annoyed by the sound of the shower. I needed my cover story. "Liam, I have to go to New York," I said, my voice sharp and stressed. He shot up in bed, his face instantly twisting in anger. What are you talking about? The pickup is tomorrow, the money." "It's the Athenaeum," I snapped, cutting him off. I was already pulling a suitcase from the closet. "Dr. Eris just called. A major donor, the one we've been trying to land for a year, is in New York for exactly 1 day. He's interested in funding a new conservation wing, but he wants to meet me. Personally, he wants to discuss my work." Liam looked confused, then furious. "Today, you're going to jeopardize a $100,000 deal for your charity job." "It's 1 day, Liam." I threw a change of clothes into the bag. "I will be back tonight on the last flight. It's 24 hours. What do you want me to do? Tell my boss no risk my job. It makes us look legitimate. The buyers from Acquisitions LLC are set for tomorrow. This doesn't change anything. It just makes me look like a busy professional, not some desperate housewife selling off her inheritance." The desperate housewife line hit its mark. He recoiled. He needed me to appear credible. He couldn't argue. "Fine," he spat. "Fine, go play your academic game, but you better be back, Clara. You better not screw this up. That money has to be here tomorrow." "It will be," I said. My first stop was not the airport. It was the bank. The chill of the vault was a comfort. I unlocked the metal box, my hands perfectly steady. I took the manuscript, my real asset, and slid it carefully into my reinforced portfolio case, which I then placed inside my nondescript Athenaeum tote bag. By 11:30 a.m., I was no longer in Liam's world. I was in mine. The Christie's office was a silent, opulent fortress high above Manhattan. I was shown not to a boardroom, but to a private, climate-controlled viewing room. The light was perfect. The long table was lined with dark velvet. Eleanor Vance stood to greet me. She was exactly as I had pictured impossibly chic, with a mind that moved like a high-speed train. With her were 2 men, one she introduced as the head of their legal department, the other, an older, stooped man with the most intelligent eyes I had ever seen, was Dr. Hemlock, their global head of manuscripts. I had read his books. I had studied his work. No one spoke. I unzipped my tote bag. I took out the portfolio. I placed the manuscript on the velvet cradle in the center of the table. For an hour, the only sounds were the whisper-thin turn of a fragile page, the soft click of a magnifying loupe, and the quiet murmurs of Hemlock and Vance as they compared the physical object to the digital scans I had provided. Dr. Hemlock used a small, handheld imaging scope, checking the iron gall ink, the paper fibers, the watermark. Finally, he sat back, his hands flat on the table. He looked at Eleanor. He didn't just nod, he looked stunned. He looked like he had just seen a ghost. Eleanor turned to me, her professional composure completely gone, replaced by the raw, unbridled excitement of the historian she was beneath the suit. Dr. Hayes, Clara, it is authentic, but it is far more important than your initial analysis suggested. We thought these were just annotations. They are, I said. No, Hemlock interrupted, his voice a gravelly whisper. They are not just annotations. This is the correspondence. The full correspondence. He wasn't just commenting on the author's work. He was using the margins to write an entirely new philosophical treatise, disguised as a letter to a friend. This is the lost document, the one everyone assumed was burned. We have been looking for this for 100 years. I felt the air leave my lungs. I had known it was important. I had not known that. What? I said, my voice barely audible. Is it worth? Eleanor took a deep breath. All business once again. This is a unicorn, Clara. There is nothing to compare it to. At auction, with the proper marketing, to the right collectors. We are confident the bidding would start at $6 million. I gripped the edge of the chair. Honestly, Dr. Hemlock added, I think it will break 10, maybe more. The market is hunting for this exact period. This is a singular, world-changing discovery. $10 million. Liam's $100,000. His desperate, furious, greedy push for 1%. He wasn't just a thief. He was an incompetent one. You mentioned complications, Eleanor said, her voice dropping, becoming conspiratorial. You mentioned a shell company. Pressure to sell the entire collection. My husband, I said. The word was sterile. Medical. He and his partner, an antiques dealer named Julian, identified it. They've been pressuring me to sell, not knowing I'd isolated the key asset. The $100,000 offer is from their shell company. They're waiting for it. Tomorrow. Eleanor's smile was thin and cold as a razor. I see. This is wonderful news. Wonderful. It means they've already committed fraud. It makes our legal case impenetrable. She pushed a thick, leather-bound folder across the table. This is our contract. We want to represent this. We will build the entire spring auction around this one piece. It will have its own catalog. It will have its own press cycle. And as of this moment, we are providing you with our top legal counsel. At our expense. They specialize in disputed assets and complex marital situations. They will protect you. They will protect the asset. I sat there, looking at these two titans of their field. They weren't looking at a cute hobbyist. They didn't see Liam's foolish wife, playing with paper. They saw Dr. Hayes, the expert, the scholar who had, in a cramped pantry, using Alistair's old tools, quietly made the single greatest manuscript discovery of the decade. All the years I had spent mending, studying, researching all the quiet, meticulous, unseen by Liam hours. He thought my power was non-existent because it didn't come with a bonus check. He was wrong. My power was my knowledge, my preservation, my authentication. It was the superpower he had mocked, and it was the weapon that was about to bring his entire fraudulent world crashing down. I picked up the heavy, perfectly weighted pen. I signed my name. Clara Hayes. Good, Eleanor said, taking the contract. We will take possession of the asset now. It will be moved to our vault. Our legal team will file an injunction first thing in the morning, freezing your husband's ability to touch any of your joint assets. We will make the global press announcement in 36 hours. It will, I assure you, get his attention. I flew home on the 9 p.m. shuttle. My tote bag was light, my portfolio empty. I felt a cold, clean, and exhilarating calm. Liam was waiting for me, pacing the living room like a caged animal. "You're back. Finally, is it done? Your stupid trip." "Yes," I said, walking past him toward the stairs. "It was very educational." "Good, because the wire transfer from Acquisitions LLC is coming in the morning, 10 a.m., $100,000. It's finally done." I stopped on the bottom step and looked back at him, at this hollow man, vibrating with greed, so proud of his pathetic little crime. "Don't worry, Liam," I said, my voice perfectly even. "Tomorrow is going to be a very big day. I'm sure we'll both get exactly what we deserve." I walked up the stairs, leaving him alone, planning the celebration for a victory that would never come. I woke up to the sound of Liam whistling in the kitchen. He was making coffee, but he sounded like a man on his way to a tropical vacation. He'd been like this all morning, vibrating with a slick, victorious energy. He'd already been on his phone twice, pacing the deck, his voice low. I came downstairs and he kissed me, a dry, triumphant peck on the cheek. "Today's the day, honey, 10 a.m. The wire comes through. Your inventory list was perfect," they said. "I'm glad I could help," I said, pouring my own coffee. "Help you saved us," he said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "You saved everything." I sat at the kitchen island watching him. He couldn't stand still. He was checking his watch, then his phone, then his watch again. At exactly 10:05 a.m., his phone buzzed on the counter. He snatched it. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated greed. He read the alert, and a low, shuddering sigh of relief left him. He looked up at me, his eyes shining. "It's here," he breathed. $100,000. It's in the joint account. He was so ecstatic, so lost in his triumph, that he became careless. He immediately opened his banking app, his thumb flying across the screen. He was talking to himself now, not to me. "Okay, there. 50,000, transferred. That'll keep Julian happy, cover the setup, and the other 50. His thumb moved again. "I'll move that to the Cayman account. By the time this all shakes out, it'll be clean. Perfect. We're safe." He had just paid Julian my $50,000 from our emergency fund, and was now stealing the other $50,000 for himself. His entire "we're ruined" charade, all for this. He finally looked up, remembering I was there, his face a mask of magnanimous relief. "You see, it's already working. I'm covering the margins. You did it. Clara, the pickup is at 11. Julian he's going to oversee it personally, just to make sure the couriers handle your legacy with respect." "How thoughtful of him," I said. The doorbell rang at 11 on the dot. Liam almost ran to get it, swinging the door open. There stood Julian, his smile a thin, oily slash. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car, and he was trying to look bored, but the avarice was rolling off him in waves. Behind him stood a nervous-looking man in a courier's uniform, holding a clipboard. "Clara," Julian said, nodding to me as he stepped inside. "Liam, glad this is all settled. My associate here is just going to confirm the inventory, and then we'll have the collection packed and moved." "It's all in the office," I said. I led the way. The 6 boxes were stacked neatly by the wall. The decoy book sat alone on my workbench, stark and unassuming under the lamp. The courier began comparing the labels on the boxes to his clipboard, but Julian wasn't looking at the boxes. His eyes, like a hawk's, went straight to the workbench, straight to the decoy. He walked past the courier, pulling a pair of white cotton gloves from his breast pocket. It was pure theater, a performance of professionalism that made my stomach turn. He was savoring this. He thought he was seconds away from a $10 million payday. He delicately, reverently, picked up the worthless 17th century theological treatise. He opened the cover. I stood in the doorway, my arms crossed, and I watched. His eyes scanned the first page. A tiny, perplexed frown appeared between his brows. He flipped a few more pages, his movements a little faster. He pulled a small, powerful UV light from his pocket. He clicked it on, the sharp purple beam cutting through the dim light of the office, and ran it over the margins. Nothing. Just paper. He flipped again, faster now, the pages making a dry, whispering sound. He was no longer reverent. He was frantic. He got to the middle of the book, running the light back and forth. Nothing. He started to sweat. A single drop ran down his temple, and he angrily swiped it away with the back of his gloved hand, smudging it. This isn't right, he muttered. He looked at the watermark, holding it up to the light. His face went pale. He slammed the book shut on the table, the sound echoing in the small room. The courier flinched. "Where is it?" Julian snapped, his voice a low hiss. He wasn't looking at me. He was glaring at Liam. Liam, who had been standing by the door with a smug grin, looked utterly baffled. What do you mean it's all there? That's the book, the old one." "This is not the book," Julian snarled. He ripped off the gloves and threw them on the desk. He finally turned to me, his eyes full of venom. "Where is it, Clara?" "The other book, the one with the annotations." The courier had stopped all pretense of working and was watching us, his eyes wide. "I'm afraid I don't know what you mean, Julian," I said. My voice was light, airy, the one I always used when Liam's friends were over. Sweet, obliging, stupid. That is the collection. That's everything. "Don't play dumb with me," Julian hissed, taking a step toward me. "I'm not," I said, my voice still sickly sweet. "It's all there. The 6 boxes, the book on the table. That is the Alastair Finch collection, the one your company, Acquisitions LLC, offered $100,000 for, sight unseen. Remember, the money is in the bank. The deal is done." Julian's face was a mask of white-hot rage. He knew. He grabbed Liam by the bicep, his fingers digging in so hard Liam winced. "The kitchen. Now." He didn't wait. He dragged Liam out of the office and into the kitchen, letting the door swing shut. I heard a muffled, furious shout. "You said she was clueless! You said she was just a hobbyist!" Then the whispers started, loud and frantic. Hissing, panicked sounds. I could hear Julian. "She found out she knows she has the book. Where is it?" And Liam, his voice rising in panic. I don't know, she was in New York. My money." "Julian, my 50,000. The kitchen door burst open, slamming against the plaster. Liam stumbled out, his face colorless, his hair wild. The mask of the successful, confident husband was gone, shattered. He was just a terrified, greedy little man. He stared at me, his eyes wide with a dawning animal panic. "Where is it, Clara?" he demanded, his voice a high, reedy squeak. "This isn't funny. Where is the other book, the one with the writing in it?" I tilted my head, putting on the face of mild confusion he had seen 1,000 times. "Writing? What writing?" "Liam. You told me it was all rack." I let the word hang in the air between us. "You said it was junk. You said Julian himself, the expert, confirmed it had no commercial value. Remember that dinner." "Stop it," he screamed, his voice breaking. "Just stop it. Where is it?" I finally dropped the act. The sweet, stupid wife vanished. My voice became as cold and as hard as the marble under his feet. "I sold what they offered to buy," I said. "They made an offer for the collection. The collection is in those boxes. They bought the rack, and they paid for it." I held up my phone, the screen glowing with our joint bank account. "The $100,000 is right here. Liam, just like you wanted. It's the money that's going to save the house. Remember, you were so desperate." Julian was frozen in the kitchen doorway, his face a spectacular ruin of hatred and professional devastation. He knew exactly what I had done. Liam looked at Julian, then back at me. "The full catastrophic weight of it finally landed on him. He hadn't just been tricked, he had been eviscerated. He had personally, eagerly, paid $50,000 of his own stolen money to buy a pile of worthless paper. "You," he whispered, his body trembling so hard he had to grab the doorframe. "You." "Me," I said. I looked past him, at the nervous courier. "Well, Julian, are you taking your boxes? You've paid for them. After all, it's only fair." I was not at home when the bomb went off. I was in a clean, quiet hotel room, 28 floors above the city, a place Liam could not find me. I had slept for the first time in what felt like years, a deep, exhausted, and dreamless sleep. I woke at dawn, ordered coffee, and opened the new, secure laptop my lawyers had provided. At exactly 9 a.m., my burner phone buzzed. It was an email from Eleanor Vance. The subject line was 3 words, "The world knows." I opened my browser. She wasn't exaggerating. It was the lead story on every major newswire: the New York Times, the Financial Times, the Art newspaper, Reuters. The headline was a vindication that felt like a physical blow, a release of pressure I had been holding for a decade. Christie's to auction long-lost, historic figure manuscript, discovered by expert conservator Clara Hayes. My name, not Mrs. Liam Hayes, not a hobbyist. Dr. Clara Hayes. Expert. I read the press release. It was a masterpiece of precise, devastating truth. It detailed the discovery of the ghost annotations, the generationally important philosophical treatise hidden in the margins. It praised the meticulous multispectral analysis performed by Dr. Hayes, which had brought the lost text to light. It mentioned the manuscript was the crown jewel of the Alistair Finch collection. And then, the numbers. The manuscript carries a pre-sale estimate in excess of $6 million, though experts believe its unique nature could drive the final price significantly higher, potentially past $10 million. The antique world didn't just buzz, it exploded. I navigated to the high-end dealer forums, the ones Julian prided himself on controlling. They were in a state of meltdown. The first comments were about the manuscript itself, but the tone shifted within minutes. Wait a second. One prominent dealer posted, "The Finch collection. Is that the same collection Julian Enterprises consulted on last month?" "My source says yes." Another replied, "Julian personally appraised it. He told a client it was academic clutter and commercially worthless. He must have missed it." "Missed it," a third, sharper voice cut in. The press release mentions Christie's secured the asset after a hostile acquisition attempt by a fraudulent shell corporation. This wasn't a mistake. He didn't miss it. He found it. He tried to steal it. He tried to buy a $10 million manuscript for pennies by defrauding the owner. He's a crook. He's finished. Julian's career, built on a curated image of infallible taste, was over. He would be a pariah by noon. No institution would ever trust his word. No client would ever buy from him again. My next task was Liam. I knew his firm. I knew the partners. I had smiled at them over dinner, listening to them talk about ethics, due diligence, and their fiduciary duty. They were sharks, but they were sharks who despised bad press. I didn't have to do anything. The Financial Times article, which had already connected Liam's name to his wife, Clara Hayes, the discoverer, was all it would take. I could see the emergency board meeting, the furious, panicked calls to the compliance department, a senior partner, Liam, implicated in a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme, not against a faceless corporation, but against his own wife. Using a shell company linked to a disgraced art dealer, it wasn't just a crime, it was a public relations catastrophe. It was sloppy. It showed catastrophic judgment. By the end of the day, his partners wouldn't be trying to save him. They would be trying to contain him, to sever his name from their letterhead before the markets opened on Monday. His career was also over. Now, for my final quiet act, from my hotel room, I logged into our joint bank account. The $100,000 from Acquisitions LLC was still sitting there, a toxic lump. Liam, in his panic, hadn't known what to do with it. Julian was likely screaming at him to send it back, while Liam was probably desperate to keep it. I opened the wire transfer screen. My first transfer was for $50,000. I sent it back to the Acquisitions LLC account number. It was the $50,000 Liam had paid Julian. In the memo line, I typed a single, beautiful, legally binding sentence. Refund for fraudulent purchase attempt. All claims voided. I hit send. I had just documented my official rejection of their criminal transaction. That left $50,000 in the account. My $50,000. The money from my old savings. The inheritance from my aunt. The money he had stolen to pay Julian in the first place. I initiated a second transfer. This one was to my new, private bank account. An account in my name only. Clara Hayes. I transferred the remaining $50,000. I watched the balance of the joint account drop to zero. In the space of 2 minutes, I had reclaimed my own money and returned his. I had cleaned the slate. I closed the laptop. The room was bright with the morning sun. I picked up my burner phone and made one last call. "It's Clara," I said when my lawyer answered. "I saw the news." She said, "Clara, you're a star." "Are you ready?" I looked out the window at the city spread out below me. "Yes," I said. "File it. File the divorce petition. Cite financial fraud. Today." I ended the call, took a sip of my coffee, and for the first time in my marriage, I felt completely, utterly, and perfectly free. The fallout was not just immediate, it was absolute. Liam's world, built on a scaffolding of arrogance and deceit, collapsed in on itself. His partners, in a unanimous decision to save their firm from the toxic publicity, terminated his employment for gross ethical violations and breach of fiduciary duty. He was out, publicly disgraced. Julian, his reputation and business simultaneously imploding, was ruined. He, in turn, sued Liam for fraud and breach of contract over the failed $50,000 conspiracy. And that was just the civil suit. The state attorney's office, alerted by Christie's legal team, had opened a criminal investigation into both of them for wire fraud and conspiracy. Our house, the sterile glass box Liam had been so proud of, was now a liability. With his assets frozen and his income gone, it was seized by his creditors and put up for a fire sale to cover the massive debts he'd hidden from me. I only had to see him one last time. We met in the neutral territory of my lawyer's conference room to sign the final divorce papers. The man who walked in was not the slick, confident predator I had married. He was a ghost. His expensive suit hung on his thinned frame. His face was gray and stubbled, and his eyes, when they met mine, were hollowed out by pure, unfiltered hatred. We sat in silence as my lawyer presented the documents. He signed his name with a shaky, angry hand. As my lawyer gathered the copies, he looked at me, his voice a dry rasp. "You're happy, I hope," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You destroyed me, Clara. You took everything. For what? For money. Was it all just about the money?" I stopped at the door, my hand on the handle. I turned to look at him, this man I had once loved, this stranger who saw the world only in dollar signs. "You called my passion junk," I said, my voice quiet, clear, and cold. "You mocked my work, the one thing that was mine, and called it a dirty little hobby. You built our entire marriage on a lie, and then you tried to steal my inheritance to cover your own pathetic greed. I didn't destroy you, Liam. I just let the world see your real worth. And it turns out, you had none at all." I closed the door, leaving him to his ruin. The auction was 3 months later. I didn't go. I watched the live stream from the Athenaeum, surrounded by Dr. Eris and my colleagues, the people who had always seen my value. The bidding was ferocious. It tore past the $6 million estimate in under 30 seconds. It flew past $10 million. When the hammer finally fell, the room was silent. The manuscript sold for $8,200,000. The money, when it arrived, felt like an abstraction. It wasn't mine. It was Alistair's. I used it to establish the Alistair Finch Fund at the Westwood Athenaeum, an endowment that would fund a new generation of conservators, researchers, and scholars. It would protect the history that people like Liam would never even have the eyes to see. My life is quiet now. It is my own. I have a new studio, a private space in a bright, airy loft overlooking the city. It smells of old paper and fresh coffee and lemon oil. The sun streams in through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. There is no chrome. There is no glass. There is only warm wood, old tools, and the peaceful, patient work. This morning, my lawyer sent over the final file, the last loose end. It was the complete discovery from Liam's financials, the last bank statements from our joint savings account before I had zeroed it out. I sat at my workbench, sipping my coffee, and I looked at the list of transactions. The $50,000 withdrawal for Julian was there, but below it, there were others. A $5,000 withdrawal 6 months ago, $10,000, 4 months ago, another $15,000, on and on, a steady, secret siphoning of my inheritance. I pulled out a calculator. My hands were steady. I added them up. The total amount Liam had secretly drained from our savings over the last 6 months, the money he had stolen from me piece by piece, was exactly $100,000. The offer from Acquisitions LLC, the number that was supposed to save him, the number he had pushed so hard for. He hadn't just been trying to buy my inheritance. He had been trying to buy my inheritance with my own money. I looked at the statement, at the cold, hard proof of his pathetic, circular greed. I thought of his face, so triumphant, when he thought he'd closed the deal. He had been proud of a crime that was not just evil, but monumentally stupid. I closed the file. I turned to the rare, beautiful book waiting on my workbench. I picked up my finest brush, dipped it in the archival paste, and began the delicate, patient work of mending. And I smiled. I was finally, completely free. Thanks for listening to my story. Let me know where you're listening from in the comments so we can connect and share our thoughts. Please subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it some extra love by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.